loneliness and burnout go hand in hand. And there was a study that came out of Harvard that said the more lonely you are, the more high stressed you are. There's a lot of connections around being lonely and burnout. And especially since COVID, everyone's working from home. And what's happened is we've had this connection piece removed. So where people would enjoy going into the office and speaking with people, that was taken away. People weren't able to see their friends and their family. So we need to understand that close relationships and strong communities are vital to health. Again, going back to the basics, going back to our ancestors.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. Burnout is emotional, physical, or mental exhaustion. Symptoms can include extreme fatigue, hair loss, anxiety, frequent colds, and more. It's basically a stress overload. But there are practices that we can adopt to help us prevent it altogether. This is episode 360, and our guest today is Adam Parker. Adam is a corporate wellness consultant and the host of the Ideal Day podcast. Adam had his own serious burnout experience a few years ago, and it turned his life around. And it led him to where he is today, a man on a mission to help others navigate their own recovery and/or to prevent burning out in the first place. Today, he offers us insights that help every single one of us. He defines burnout. He offers strategies for avoiding dependence on multiple cups of coffee or alcohol to push through the stress. He reminds us that what we take in, even subconsciously through TV or social media, can up our stress load. He covers the need to guard against blue light and EMFs. There's all kinds of valuable information in this show. And most of all, he reminds us of the healing power of nature, sunlight, and connection to one another. Ultimately, he offers us tools that help us regain our health and balance. Before we dive into the conversation, I want to offer you a free gift. It's Weston A. Price Foundation's information pack that gives you background on the foundation, along with our most popular brochure, Timeless Principles of Healthy Traditional Diets. It includes pictures of some of the work of Dr. Price and the isolated people groups that he visited. They really stand in sharp contrast to civilized moderns, as we would call ourselves today, who subsist on the displacing foods of modern commerce. The brochure is in this pack, along with a list of dietary guidelines and dietary dangers. Just go to the westonaprice.org website, click on the Request Free Info Pack button, and it's all yours. And Ultimate Dog Chirp Superfood Topper. It is specially formulated to address stubborn dog allergies by improving your dog's gut health. Chirp is made with human-grade, organic ingredient, including organic cricket protein, organic reishi mushrooms, and organic kelp. The U.S.-grown organic reishi mushroom blend in Chirp delivers 120 milligrams of beta-glucans per scoop, and it is scientifically shown to boost immunity while supporting a healthy inflammatory response. Chirp includes soil-based organism probiotics, Saccharomyces boulardii, and Bacillus coagulans, which help balance your dog's intestinal flora and reduce inflammation while enhancing immune function. Chirp includes powerful fungal-based enzymes that improve your dog's overall digestion and support regularity. When combined with the organic kelp, the low-carb organic cricket protein in Chirp provides your dog with vitamins A, B, E, D, K, calcium, potassium, iron, and zinc, necessary for your dog's overall good health. Organic kelp improves dry, itchy skin while reducing the itching and irritation due to skin allergies. Plus, organic cricket protein is an excellent source of antioxidants, protecting your dog's cells against the free radicals that cause inflammation and cellular damage. Chirp contains 0 fillers and no preservatives, only the ingredients that benefit your dog's health and wellness. My lab loves it. But of course she does. She's a lab. Honestly, you need to check it out and see what Chirp can do for your dog. Visit ultimatedog.com/chirp and use the coupon WISE for 15% off your next order of Ultimate Dog Chirp Superfood Topper for your dog's allergies and overall good health. Your fur baby will thank you. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Adam.
Hilda, it's a pleasure being here with you.
You've got your show, your ideal day. You've got a lot of things going on, a coaching program. But I know your career started when you were in the tech field and you were on the rise. You were climbing that corporate ladder and exactly what you dreamed of. And that's when you started to experience burnout. Tell us that story, Adam.
Yeah, so from as far back as I could remember being a kid, I just was fascinated with these innovative tech companies. So 20 years ago, Google was really on the rise. 15 years ago, Facebook was really starting to grow. And I remember being at university, this is way over 15 years ago, thinking, wow, that's where I want to be. And sure enough, once I graduated and I moved to the city of London, within a couple of years, I found myself working for one of the big tech firms. And it was great. I was doing the whole city thing. I was getting my coffee on the way to work, like the Cosmopolitan coffee. And, in the office, I was drinking probably 3 or 4 coffees. As you know, when you don't know, it's just a thing to do, working late, taking out clients. And the harder I worked, the more successful I got. And it was great. But as time went on and I was, getting higher and higher in my field and more responsibility, I started to have symptoms that things weren't quite right. And it was things like exhaustion. I was getting sick a lot more easily. And when those things happen, you just think, that was fine. I've got to keep hustling and working harder. And what I found was like kind of mitigation strategies. I was tired, more coffee. I was getting anxious in situations that I wouldn't normally. I was fine. It was social. We were with clients. I'll just have more alcohol. I was finding these mitigation strategies. And it progressively got worse. It was a process. And it got to the point, and I remember this day, I woke up and I just couldn't get out of bed. I was just tired. I just had no energy. I was anxious in bed. I was like, this is not right. And the other thing, again, this is just what tends to happen with burnout. These symptoms continue and then it can evolve into poor health if you really don't address the symptoms. My hair was falling out. Which I now know is a sign of thyroid issues. So that was, for me, the break point. But I knew way before that, things weren't quite right. So I kind of hit this kind of rock bottom. I realized I had to make a change. I said, this isn't sustainable. And I had to take time off from that job to recover. It was basically work-related stress. It was themed as. And I shifted my focus just to really focus on how can I, A, get better, but B, when I am better, thrive in this environment because I enjoy this environment. I want it to be sustainable.
I want to get to the strategies in a little bit, Adam, but I want to ask you more about the symptoms of burnout. Does it appear differently for different people? You described yours as anxiety, overwhelming fatigue, your hair was falling out. What are the symptoms for others?
I think it's important to realize that there is no official diagnosis of burnout. However, this is really interesting. Just this January, so January 2022, the World Health Organization now recognizes burnout. They've called it an occupational phenomenon, and that's in their 11th revision of the International Classification of Disease. So it's definitely something that we're recognizing now, especially since COVID and everything that's happened there. But in terms of what does it feel like? What does it look like? I think the most common symptoms would be exhaustion. You're tired all of the time. Your immune system normally gets lowered. So you might be getting more colds or more flus more often. And you'd be like, why am I getting sick all the time? This isn't like me. It can manifest in poor sleep. So if you get good sleep, you feel it. You might track your sleep. I track my sleep, but a lot of people don't. But they'll know. They'll wake up and they just won't feel, I just don't feel refreshed. Or they might get insomnia. What also tends to happen is you start to create these kind of dependency strategies. So I was saying I was sleepy, so I had more coffee. A lot of people will lean to alcohol. Really interesting statistic for you, Hilda. In the UK, when the lockdown started 2 years ago, statistics came out on what are the changes in buying behaviors, right? We're all locked indoors. What's going on? And two things skyrocketed. The first one was takeaway food, because we're all now locked indoors. We've got Uber Eats and all of these things. The second was alcohol consumption. Alcohol consumption increased by 30%. It absolutely skyrocketed. So you can see that that was people's coping mechanism. You know, their community had been taken away. Their livelihoods in some cases have been taken away. So people tend to start to lean on these dependencies to deal with the stress.
Before we go any further, Adam, help us understand what burnout is exactly. You've described the symptoms. Let's talk about what it is.
Burnout is essentially, it comprises of emotional, physical, or mental exhaustion. And the way I like to kind of explain it to people I work with is you have a seesaw. Now, I know that in the US, you call it a teeter-totter. So a seesaw in a park, right? We call it a seesaw here in the UK. So on one side, you've got deadlines, demands, and stress, right? So we've all got deadlines, we've all got responsibilities, we've all got demands on us, and we all have this stress that we have to deal with. And on the other side, we have the recognition, we have the rewards, so the reward for our efforts, and we also have relaxation. And really what we want to do is have a nice balance between the two. That's where we need, and ideally, I always say, if we can get more relaxation and recognition, great. But what tends to happen as demands build and the pressures build and the stresses build, what starts to happen? We start to, I can't meet you tonight. I can't go for dinner, or I can't spend time with my family, or do you know what? I was going to have a relaxing weekend, but now I've got to do that project. And slowly but surely, that starts to be diminished, the recognition, the reward, the relaxation. That imbalance occurs, and then we start to manifest the symptoms of burnout.
You know, and what you're describing is what so many of us experience. As you put it in those phrases like, oh, I wanted to do this, but I have to work. I have heard this many times and observed it in my own life when that imbalance occurs. All right, so now talk to us about how we can manage it. I don't think everybody can step off the hamster wheel as you did and take time off to recover. How can we regain that balance you're describing?
So burnout is about stress, and we said demands and all of that sort of stuff, right? And there's that imbalance. Now, we have to learn to manage the stress fundamentally. Now, as you know, humans, we've evolved to adapt to stress. We've all heard the story of the caveman or woman, the tiger's around the corner. We have an acute stressful moment, blood rushes to the muscles, we run, we save the day, everything's great. The challenge is today's world, it's chronic, consistent stress alongside no relaxing moments, no rest, no rejuvenation. So that's the problem. So fundamentally, we need to look at how we manage our stress. Since COVID happened, burnout has absolutely 10x'd. Absolutely 10x'd. It's been the perfect storm. We had this narrative of burnout was long existing, but now with everything that's happened, it's really personified. We've had people having lack of movement because we've been at home. We've had lack of connection because we're stuck in front of our screens, lack of natural light. We've had lack of good food because now, hey, we'll just get on. We have Deliveroo here and Uber Eats. I know you guys have Uber Eats and other ones, but hey, it's a click of a button. So this kind of COVID event personified it all.
And on top of all of that, there is that anxiety, that fear, what's going to happen, the uncertainty about some boogeyman virus about to get you, you know, so that's on top of the usual stressors and then adding to the ones you just mentioned.
Yeah. And talking about fear, this is a really important point. And this is one of my preventative strategies that we'll jump into. And what you input into your mind is so important. I can talk about all of the biohacks and all the ancestral things, and they are a cornerstone to this process of recovery and prevention. However, we've never had a moment in our history where the fear mongering from the mainstream media was so high. And what people don't tend to realize is even consuming that information passively can have a big impact on how you feel. I found an amazing study, and it basically said that just 3 minutes of consuming mainstream media, which is normally negative news in the morning, increased your likelihood of having a bad day by 27%. So essentially, it's framing our day. So for me, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, you wake up, it's about uplifting music or audio or whatever it is, right? You frame your day. But if you're passive and you don't realize that watching the news or listening to the radio, it can create fear. And that is also a stress. We think about, well, I'm working late, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. What you consume is also adding to your stress load. So I think that's really important. This fear narrative that has, for some reason, been ramped up to the maximum since this whole COVID outbreak began.
So true. And so many people, well, actually, I don't know how many do it anymore, but I run an alternative health circle, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do begin their day watching talk shows, the Today Show, whatever it is that is trying to keep you interested and engaged. So they will even, like you said, ramp up the fear because it's a bestseller. People want to know when the man bit the dog. Like, it's news, it's exciting, it's scary, it's drama.
Yeah.
So they tune into that and then they end their day watching the news again. Or maybe right now for many of us, it's scrolling. You don't know what you're going to come across. And some of these things instill fear in us. So a really good point that that's part of our stress load.
Yeah, and just to kind of add more to that point, the subconscious mind is powerful. And essentially, the subconscious mind is deductive. So what does that mean? It only accepts, right? Like our conscious mind has reasoning and logic. Now, how do you get through to the subconscious mind? It's through time-spaced repetition. Same message over and over and over. And what's perfect example of that is mainstream media. So if we passively listen to mainstream media and we don't control what we input, we'll start believing things and just accepting things. And again, that adds to the stress load. And then all of a sudden, you're making decisions and having to do things that cause you stress because of what you believe. Now, again, I'm not saying the mainstream media isn't true or not, but what I am saying is most likely it's going to be negative information that will impact your stress levels. So we just have to be careful on what we're taking in, because that has a big impact, just as much as working too hard, just as much as not eating good food. It all plays a big part in, our ability to deal with stress.
I'm so glad you said that, because I will often say the same thing. What we consume, our diet is not just the food. It's everything we're taking in. So thank you for mentioning that. Let's talk about some other kind of biohacks or strategies for returning to balance and avoiding burnout.
Sure. So when I work with my clients, I take them through essentially my 9 pillars for burnout recovery and prevention, because it's all about changing habits, creating habits. And once you get these dialed in, you've got the armory to really keep burnout kind of, at arm's length. So one that I love to talk about is about nature. And our biology expects us to engage with nature. It's part of our primitive wiring. And when I was thinking earlier, the work of Weston A. Price, amazing. He wrote about all of these, he called them primitive cultures all around the world, wherever they were. They adapted to their environment and they thrived in their environment. And I think to myself, well, do you know what? Us as humans, our new environment is corporate world, this work from home, this office world, right? We have adapted to this world. We've adapted to sitting under junk light all day. We've adapted to not moving. We've adapted to getting unhealthy processed takeout foods on the go. We've adapted to this stress, but we're not thriving in the environment. So we can thrive in the environment when we have the knowledge and the tools. And that's what I try and do when I work with an individual who's suffering with burnout or going into burnout. So nature's super important. And I'm sure your listeners have heard about Shirin-yoku, forest bathing, right?
Yes.
And this was obviously invented in Japan because there was high suicide rates. And medicine was go out into nature and be with nature, don't take technology, and it's great for health. So what does nature do? Nature lowers cortisol levels, number one. It relaxes you. It aligns you with your circadian rhythm. We were talking before we jumped on about the frequencies of energy. There's energy, there's life. There's a joy, honestly, Hilda, there's a joy just holding a tree, because there's energy in the tree, right?
It's true.
But just being in nature is a gift and it's free. Now, I also understand that a lot of people work in cities that don't have access to nature. So there's a spectrum. Ideally, be out in nature every day. If you can't, go to your local park, walk around, just be with the trees, be with the earth. But the absolute minimum I would say is people have to be outdoors in natural light for at least 30 minutes a day, because light within itself is healing. We know it gives us good vitamin D. It lowers our stress. It helps our circadian rhythm reset or keep functioning. There's so many benefits to the natural spectrums of lights.
And I like that you said when the Japanese were prescribed to do forest bathing, they were told to leave their devices behind because sometimes we almost act like maybe I didn't see the sunset if I didn't take a picture of it. It's just so silly, and we need to come back to return to the wise tradition of being in nature without all the technology, because it's so healing, as you said. Tell us about another one of the pillars that you recommend.
So another one of my pillars is, I call it guard. We kind of touched upon earlier, Hilda, you have to guard the door to your mind, as it were, and not just your mind, but also your body. So let's just think about our minds. We live in an attention economy. We know this. We know that mainstream media, social media, they're all about grabbing our attention, and they're not too focused really on our own well-being. We know this. We've seen the documentaries. We've seen the studies. So we have to really dial in when we intake this information. I always say it's about being in manual, right? So you've got automatic. So automatic, if I'm just watching TV, things are going in and I'm not filtering what I'm taking in. Manually, I'm saying, hey, I wake up in the morning and I'm going to play some motivational audio or a podcast that I like, whatever it is. Filter what content comes into your mind. That's really important.
Coming up, Adam explains other ways we can guard the body and the mind, including the importance of blocking blue light. He also enumerates other pillars to help us return to balance and prevent burnout.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Paleo Valley beef sticks use old world methods of fermentation, which gives the beef sticks a long shelf life, much longer than other options, without the addition of harmful acids and chemicals. Gross ingredients hiding in most beef sticks or jerky include hormones, some of which are linked to cancer, and multiple experts agree there is no acceptable level humans should be exposed to. MSG, that can cause unhealthy inflammation, weight gain, blood sugar issues, and more. And brominated vegetable oil, first patented as a flame retardant. You guys, Paleo Valley beef sticks, on the other hand, are naturally fermented and are full of gut-friendly probiotics. So you end up with a balanced, healthy gut and eased digestion. Plus, they taste amazing and are perfect when you want a healthy snack on the go. Get yours now at paleovalley.com and use the code WISE for 15% off at checkout. That's paleovalley.com and the code word WISE. Optimal Carnivore. Organ meats are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, but they can be intimidating to prepare and hard to source, let's be honest. Optimal Carnivore makes it easy to get started. They take 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand, freeze-dry them, and encapsulate them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. They chose New Zealand because it is one of the most pristine, clean environments on the earth, and the animals are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished and free of hormones, pesticides, antibiotics, and GMOs. And since our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal, Optimal Carnivore created a unique blend of 9 different organs in their grass-fed organ complex, a powerful combination including beef liver, brain, thymus, heart, kidney, spleen, pancreas, lung, and gallbladder. This is awesome. Each organ brings its own unique nutrients to the table, and it's a real nose-to-tail solution, perfect for people on the go or those trying to develop an appreciation for organ meats. I like to take these supplements to help fill in the gaps. Plus, Optimal Carnivore plants 1 tree for every product sold, which helps the environment. They offer a grass-fed organ complex, a grass-fed bone marrow, and a grass-fed liver product. Go to Amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code Weston10 to save 10% on all products. That's Amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and the code Weston10. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
what else do we need to guard from? We need to guard from blue light. So, blue light blocking glasses, super important, because in the evening, if we're in front of our devices, which we all are, we all like a bit of Netflix or whatever it may be in the evening. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to create strategies to avoid impacting our circadian rhythm. So again, within the health circle, a lot of your listeners will know about blue light blocking glasses, but when you're dealing with corporate world, which I focus on, they're like, really? Glasses? Like, it's all a new concept. If you think it's not pushed out into like mainstream media. Mm-hmm. I always think as soon as the latest Netflix show starts seeing people with blue light blocking glasses, everyone will jump on board, right? But it's not within kind of popular circles yet. So there's that. And there's things like electromagnetic fields as well. Knowing that that's a risk and knowing that we have to create strategies to mitigate that. So when I went on this journey and I discovered all these things, and I'm like, I completely transformed my reality and how I live my life. And I started to take things for granted. And then when I would speak with clients, I would realize how far I'd changed my routines. So this is the example. When I talk about EMF strategies, the amount of my clients that have their phone next to their heads when they sleep. And for me, that's just been a no-go for nearly, over 5 years. I just had the phones in a different room. Mm-hmm. So these things that are small changes, but have a huge impact because our biology, our cells aren't used to these non-native fields. So just, distance is our friend. Having distance is an easy strategy, but a very important one.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. The same thing has happened to me, Adam, where I think what I do is normal until I hang out with someone who has no idea that it's a good idea to turn your Wi-Fi off at night, or it's a good idea to wear blue blockers, like you said, in the evening, or to avoid screens altogether for more profound restorative sleep. So that's so funny. But thank you for the reminder that these small changes can make a big difference. What other pillars can you tell us about?
So if we're going along the biohacking kind of narrative, connection. So we now live in a world where we are more connected than ever. So we're talking right now, I'm here in the UK in London, you're over in the States.
Yes.
We're connected, but we're more lonelier than we've ever been. And loneliness and burnout go hand in hand. And there was a study that came out of Harvard that said the more lonely you are, the more high stressed you are. There's a lot of connections around being lonely and burnout. And especially since COVID, everyone's working from home. And what's happened is we've had this connection piece removed. So where people would enjoy going into the office and speaking with people, that was taken away. People weren't able to see their friends and their family. It's varied where you are in the world right now. In the UK, we're kind of getting back to normal. Most people are still doing a hybrid model, half in the office, half at home. There are some places around the world where it's still, don't go into the office, you're now working from home. So we need to understand that close relationships and strong communities are vital to health. Again, going back to the basics, going back to our ancestors, this is how we evolved.
Yes, and close relationships in real life, dare I say. I think it's lovely that you're right. Through the beauty of technology, you and I can connect right now, but it pales in comparison to being in the same room.
100%. That is important. And you think about the hormone oxytocin, it's the kind of together hormone, I feel connected to you. There's a spectrum, right? The best oxytocin release is face-to-face, being with someone, being around their energy, being connected. Then it goes down to a Zoom call. Then it goes down to a phone call. Then it goes down to like a text. So again, understanding this and understanding that we need to create moments where we are connecting with people. And one of my clients, that was one of the major pieces of his burnout because he would say to me, I don't have those water cooler moments anymore. They're gone. We go on Zoom and it's all about got to be productive. We've got to work. And those moments can make people's day. You're just having a conversation. You're in the kitchen at work and, oh, how are you? And what are you doing? And those can really enlighten people. And that was removed. And again, that's the connection that we thrive for as people. If you think about like hunter-gatherers, they would spend 3 hours probably foraging, hunting, the rest of the time back with their community, back in their tribe, having fun, being together. So that's how we're wired. Yeah. And again, I talk about this new world of office work. We can't thrive unless we have that connection. So we have to bake that in.
Over here in the US, during the early days of COVID, they would say, only essential employees can come in, and they started categorizing work and workers as essential and non-essential, I would say connection is essential for good health.
Yeah, 100%. And again, we think we've got to be productive. And we realize that we do, and it's great to be productive, but it can only last so long if we're not bonding and being with people and feeling that connection. And what I really find interesting is I always have an amazing night's sleep when I've had an evening of bonding with friends, family, being connected. And it's because it's great for lowering stress. It's great for boosting those good hormones like oxytocin. I sleep like a rock. So I was like, wow, this is something I have to bake in more than most because it works for me. But in general, we have to get that connection and make it priority.
Hey, Adam, have you ever encountered someone who kind of doesn't buy all that you're saying, who's like, you know what? I'm not burnt out. Yes, I'm tired because I'm working hard, but that's just the way it goes. This is part of the hustle. This is part of what you have to do to stay on top.
Yes, in the short, I have. And I think for me, I think it's part of culture because it's, okay, let's just think I'm an entrepreneur, so I've got to crush it. I've got to work all the hours God gives me. I'm in the corporate world. When you're in the corporate world is in its essence, its own culture. And the culture is, if you work in a corporate and someone says, oh, how are you? The automatic response is, oh, busy, right?
Yes.
There's the culture of I am busy. I'm always on the go. So yes, 100% people say, just got to work hard and we're always tired. And I say, great. I have a different path and I have strategies that you can have it all. You can have the high work rate and output and also not feel burnt out. There is a way to do it. And it comes down to education and knowledge. And that's where we look at the whole biohacking element and then really being in alignment with our ancestral DNA. And then there's the other side of it around just organizing your time and creating boundaries and, learning that no can be as powerful as saying yes, right? So there is a way around it. But I think I love the motivation of the people I work with. They're so driven on what they want to achieve that everything else is secondary. And what I try and educate and say, hey, listen, I love that. I love where you're going. Let me give you some tools. Let me give you a perspective that's going to further elevate you.
Yes, because Stephen Covey said, I think in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that we have to stop, if only to quote unquote, sharpen the axe. So if I keep working hard, it's like my axe is going to get dull. I think I'm putting in all this effort and I'm exhausted. But if I take a break to rest, it gives me the opportunity to sharpen the axe. So when I go back to work, I'm more effective. I think that's what you're alluding to.
100%. And I think, again, people think the harder I work and the longer I work, the better the result I'll get. And when they realize, take a break, switch off, and then you come back stronger, it can be a game changer for people. But again, it's part of the culture that we've been fed. And we fed that culture through movies, films, the environment that we work in, because nobody likes to come across like, oh yeah, I'm going to take a couple of hours off just to chill out. That's something that people don't promote culturally. It's like, no, I'm busy. So yes, you recharge those batteries, you come back so much stronger.
Absolutely. So I think we have time for one more pillar. What would you like to emphasize here at the end?
Sure. So I would say the last one we talk about is self-care. Now, again, when we talk about the seesaw or the teeter-totter analogy, right? So we got demands and the stress and the deadlines on one side. We've got the recognition, relaxation, and reward on the other side. When we don't focus and prioritize ourselves, you hear the analogy, right? It's please put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. We hear this all the time. So if you don't look after yourselves first, you're no good to your colleagues, your community, your family. So we have to create this notion where we're putting ourselves first. So what does that look like? That looks like understanding what fills our cup, what makes us feel good, what relaxes us. So for some, it's going for that walk. For others, it's family time. So it's understanding what fills our cup and then creating boundaries in order to make those things happen. So it's creating boundaries, it's prioritizing your schedule to make sure that what you need to help you do your best, you have in place. So again, in the world of work, if you work in a corporate environment, you can't just leave early to go do stuff. So there's ways around it. There's mitigation strategies around it. Just block it out as a one-on-one with someone. There's a ways to carve out time so you look busy and play that narrative. but get what you need. So it might be, listen, I love an evening walk after work, before dinner, just to really unwind from the day and let my thoughts kind of unravel. Bake it in, make it priority. If it's, I need to work out. So me personally, one of my non-negotiables is I love to work out in the morning because I know I feel good. I've got good energy. So that's a non-negotiable for me. I have to do it. I will move things around my calendar to make sure I get that in. So self-care is really important. It's setting boundaries. It's learning to say no. Again, people don't like saying no with their work because they think I might be, turning money down, or I might be disappointing people. There's positive ways to say no and to, again, create space for yourself. So learning to know your limits is important.
Yes. And sometimes they say you have to say no to others to say yes to yourself. And for anyone listening who's like, oh, I can't do self-care, or I can't put myself first because that's selfish. Self-care is not selfish. It actually allows you to have the energy you need to give to others. We need to keep that in mind. All right. So Adam, I just have a couple more questions. And one is, everybody's feeling stressed right now. Everyone is close to burnout. You've suggested that these things are prevention strategies. Do you think it's realistic? Do you think people really can apply some of these things into their life to avoid burnout altogether?
Definitely. Look, I think we now live in a world where burnout is very common. We've obviously discussed the WHO have now classified it as something that we need to really consider as part of our normal lives. And again, I really feel it comes down to education. A lot of the things I talk about are just tools that I've taken from the health space and are trying to apply within entrepreneurial environments, corporate environments, to say, hey, listen, these are really easy changes in habit and routine that have a tenfold impact. For example, just putting on some blue light blocking glasses in the evening. Super easy to do, massive impact on energy. So it's these short switches in habits and behaviors that really get you to a place where you can thrive, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for a big corporate. It's just having the knowledge. And I feel so grateful and blessed that I went through my episode of burnout, because as we know, Hilda, the health is a very deep rabbit hole, right? And there's so much amazing content online. And I was fascinated by it because I didn't want to going to the allopathic doctor. I didn't want to take antidepressants. I was like, I'm not depressed. I know that. So there's got to be another way. So it's getting that information to people that it isn't going to be their main focus because they're driven. They've got amazing goals they're trying to achieve. And it's just giving them the tools to help them. And listen, as I said, I have these 9 pillars, and, not all of them are applicable because some people have great sleep and they feel rested and they have their own way of doing things. Mm-hmm. So really it's just offering different strategies and habits that people can use to bake into already the tools and strategies that they will have, because people already will have these mitigation strategies, but we want to avoid strategies like eating more processed food and alcohol and, those ways to de-stress. And we want to bring in nature. We want to bring in guarding yourself from certain dangers. We want to bring in connection, because they're the things that we're wired to really enjoy and to fill our cup.
Well, Adam, this has been great. I'm hopeful that this will encourage folks to add some of these tools into their toolbox and to avoid burnout or manage it in healthy ways. And I want to ask you now the question I like to pose at the end of the show. If the listener could do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do, Adam?
We've kind of touched upon this earlier, but I think this is so relevant for the time that we live in. And that is really to guard what comes into our mind and comes into our bodies. Really be aware that if we don't have awareness of what things can passively be absorbed, so whether that's information, whether that's going out and having a takeout and having seed oils, whatever it is, they can impact our ability to deal with stress and also our general well-being. So I say, guard your mind from mainstream media, social media, blue light, anything digital. Know that you have to create the rules around how you engage with your technology versus it control you.
Yes, so good. Well, Adam, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your encouragement. I really appreciate you.
Hilda, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Our guest today was Adam Parker. Check out his website for more on the pillars to prevent burnout and for other resources. It's youridealday.com. And I'm Hilda Labrada Gore. the host and producer of this podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for this podcast, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. As a matter of fact, while you're on our website, go to the podcast page. There's a drop-down menu item that says About the Show. Click there, and you'll find a way in which you can communicate with me. Yes, you can leave me your testimonial on how the Wise Traditions diet or lifestyle has made a difference in your life. It's just 2 to 3 minutes long. Record it just like you would record a voicemail message for a friend on their phone, even though I know people don't do that very much anymore. But it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. And once you give that to me, I may be able to include it in an upcoming episode. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well. Hasta pronto.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.